Thanks for joining us today on the MiddleTree Church podcast. In a world that constantly demands more, how do we create space for what truly matters? Does success mean that our schedules, finances, and relationships all have to be out of balance? In this 4-week series, Margin, we'll look to the wisdom of God's Word and learn how less can equal more.
Morning, church. Morning. So I've started a new hobby, and it's propagating plants. If anything says you're getting older, it's this, Plant propagation. It's kind of a new thing for me. So you take like clippings of plants, and you can stick them in the ground, and they grow. Huh? Yeah, well, there's a little more to it than that, but rooting hormone, vermiculite, and perlite, and meteorites, and all kinds of stuff you put in there in the soil, and you can grow these. And so all along I've been buying plants when you can get them for free. You can grow them yourself. And so this is kind of my new little hobby, and it's kind of a fun little thing. And this one, I got this to use it as an illustration, and the roots are all growing down in here. It's really a fun thing. It's kind of cool. Am I old or what? This is like, it's so exciting. And so, but what happens every once in a while, and it's not happening here with this plant, this is relatively young still, is that if they go for a while, and maybe you found this if you go to like a Home Depot or your local nursery, you get a pot, you'll go to take it out and put it in the ground, and then you find something like this. Have you seen that before? This isn't a very bad version, but they call this being root bound. All right? It's root bound. So the roots have reached their limits. There's no more room in the pot for the roots to grow. And I looked at some pretty severe cases of root bound, but they looked really gross, and I didn't want them to kind of just sit there in your presence. So this is a tamer version, but sometimes the roots can really start to begin to choke up the plant itself because there's a lack of room. There's a lack of room for it to grow. And it's a funny thing because the plant is doing what it's supposed to be doing. The plant is growing. Like it's putting all of its energy and resources into growing its roots so that it can get stabilized, established, and can grow up and be a mature plant. And so it's doing what it's supposed to do, but it's seizing up all its room. And the roots, if you don't get it repotted, the roots start to circle around and kind of like just begin to choke the plant out and can kill it. And honestly, it's not a big deal. Like if those plants, again, my plant isn't in that condition, but if the plant got to that condition, it would break my heart. I might cry for a couple weeks over it, but I would get over it. The problem is that when that starts to look like your life, when that becomes a metaphor for your life, when it's root bound and there's no more space within your finances, there's no room within your schedule, there's no room within your relationship, you're not having that room to kind of grow, that becomes a real problem, right? And so your schedule, when your schedule is so packed, it's so crammed full of things, and there's no room for rest at all. And you're completely exhausted, but there's constantly this feeling of, I gotta keep going. I've gotta keep at this because I can't stop, I can't take a break. There's no room for rest. That becomes a problem. And then when it's your relationships, when there's no time for relationships because you've got to keep things going, you're so busy and you don't have the emotional capacity to be present with those who you love, that becomes a problem. And when you look at your finances, and there's no room in your finances, and it's just a bill comes in, and you're like looking at your bank account, and you're looking at this bill, and this bill, and this bill, and you're trying to juggle, when's this one due, and that one due, and you're doing this game of trying to if I can just pay this amount there, I can delay that one, and you're just doing this game when there's no room in your finances, there's no margin in your life. That becomes really problematic. And so it's one thing to be a root-bound plant and, that it'll get choked out, but it's another thing when it's becoming your life. And it looks like that financially, it looks like that in your schedule, it looks like that in your relationships. That becomes a real problem. And sometimes we can have this feeling like, to be honest, Brian, I don't have a choice. This is It has to be this way. If you knew the boss, if you knew the degree I was going for, if you knew my schedule, if you knew my situation, you would understand, like, I have to keep going like this. If my kids are going to get into that school, then we've got to do these things. And if this is going to happen, if we're going to succeed, this is what we have to do. And so honestly, there's probably some seasons in life where it is like just over the top, going to be just nonstop, no margin. But if we're honest, and if I'm honest with you, I think most of the times that this is a creation of our own doing, where we get into this position like we have kind of created this on our own, and we end up living with no margin. And so let me explain what I mean when I talk about margin. Here's what margin is. Margin, when I talk about it, this is what I'm referring to. Margin is the space between what is and what is necessary. So what is and what is necessary, that's what we're calling margin. So I'll give you some examples, some real-world examples. You have a $300 electric bill come to your house. You have $500 in your bank. How much margin do you have? It's $200. You didn't know this was going to be a math class, did you? Yeah. So welcome to math. So that's $200 in margin. All right. You have a 5 o'clock doctor appointment. It's 4:30, and it takes 20 minutes to get there. How much margin do you have? 10 minutes. All right. So this is margin we're talking about. And life is better when we have margin in our lives. Life is better when we're not root bound. Life is better when there's room for us to grow. And you're not rushing around, and because you only have 10 minutes to get there, and you're throwing on clothes, and you're tying shoes, and you're trying to remember everything, and you're running, and you're just in a whirlwind of trying to get to the next place, and when you're not rushing around. And so when you're refreshing your screen and trying to see when that check is going to clear so that you can pay this bill, and like, come on, I hope that gets in before the end of the day. And that's when you're rushing around like that. When someone's talking with you and you're able to sit there and be present with them, you're not sitting there thinking in the back of your mind, I wish they would hurry up and wrap this up because I got things to do, and you're thinking about all these other problems, and they're talking to you, and you're just throwing a few uh-huhs in there every once in a while to make it seem like you're there. That's not good. It's not good to have life without margin. It's not good to show up in this room and you can't be present before the Lord. See? Siri's got my back on this one. It's not good when you show up into this room and you can't worship. It's not good when you cannot just enter into prayer. It's not good when you can't connect with those around you because you have no margin in your lives. That is not a good place to be. Life is so much better when you have margin in your life. The reason I chose this series to begin today is that as we head into the fall, it's a new season in many levels. If you're a student, it's the start of a new semester. Some of you here on maybe a residency. Some of you buying a new home, stepping into a new home. Some of you getting married. Some of you are having children. So many new seasons are being stepped in. And we all know this. In the beginning of a new season, you have a lot of energy. Marriage, you newlyweds, a lot of energy. You don't have to fight to love the other. You don't have to fight for the feeling, right? When school's starting up and you're excited, like, this is the semester, I'm getting straight A's. Right, yeah, so it's like, that's my story. So, like, that you have you're motivated, right? You're motivated, and so you're going, you're like, and you get into the schedule, and you're like, well, I can cut some things out. I can keep going. I can keep burning the candle on both ends because I'm motivated. I feel like I can neglect this relationship over here because we're good. We love each other. I can just keep going at this and it'll be fine. If we could just purchase maybe this thing over here, this would make our life so much easier. I know it's going to stress the budget, but I know it will be so much more helpful. It'll make life so much easier. And this is we get into these new seasons and we're like, let's just go to the tilt. But the thing is, credit card statements start to come in. Thing is, the body breaks down and you start to get sick. The thing is, miscommunication starts to happen within your relationships. And now you don't have the reserves there that were there before. And you begin to put in place practices and habits that are not going to sustain you and be healthy. And so we begin to live without limits, without any margin. And you can't live without limits. You can't live without margin. In fact, I'd say it like this. Show me the margin in your life, and I'll show you the quality of your life. Show me the margin in your life, and I'll show you the quality of your life. I think in our effort to grow our life by consuming the margin that we have, we end up choking the life out that we're trying to preserve. And here's a few things that happen when you have no margin in your life. There's a few things that happen. Here's what happens. The first thing, when there's no margin in your life, you only have relief when your plans go perfectly. When there's no margin, and that appointment is 20 minutes away, and you've got 20 minutes to get there, everything has to go perfect in order for you to have relief. You can't hit a red light. Those people should not be driving slow in the left lane. Those cute little ducks better not be crossing the road. Like none of that, or we're having duck soup, right? And so none of those things should happen. Everything has to go perfect because you're stressed all the way up until you get to that appointment. And that's the only way you have relief is if things go perfectly. Your schedule is so packed, there's no time for sickness. The kids better not come to you with a problem. Everything must go perfect. Those people that you're doing the assignment with better do their part. Everything must happen in order for you to have relief. Your finances. If you're tight, if there's no margin, nothing can break down. The car better keep going. Those appliances better not stop. Nothing unexpected can happen if you have no margin. Everything has to go perfectly in order for you to have any kind of relief. So when you live with no margin, that's a problem. The second thing is that when you have no margin in life, you're more susceptible to making poor decisions. So what's worse than having the stress of having everything to go perfect? Having everything have to go perfectly when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Adding that on top of the mix. Having everything has to go perfect while you're hungry, while you're angry, when you're lonely, when you're tired. In fact, this is when the worst decisions are made, is when you're under stress and when you're hungry, you're angry, lonely, tired. If you're feeling one of these and you're under stress, that is the worst time to make decisions. That's when marriages fall apart. That's when people start thinking, you know what, my life would be way better without her, without him. That's when you're under stress and you're feeling these things, poor decisions. That's when you start eating junk for your food. Your diet falls off the rails. That's when you exercise, you quit exercise. Like all these poor decisions start happening when you have no margin, you're under stress, and now you throw hangriness in there. You throw in all these other emotions. It's not a good recipe. And this is what we tend to operate under. And so a third thing, when you have no margin in your life, people become obstacles. When you're under stress, and now you're throwing emotions into the mix, there's a transformation that begins to happen in your life. The transformation is this. First, you become irritable, and they become annoying. So you've got important things to do. You've got stuff to, why don't you understand? Why are you bothering me right now? I've got all these important things to do. I've got this work to get done. Because if this work doesn't get done, then these things don't happen. And if these things don't happen, all of this falls apart. So I don't have time for you. I don't have time for this. Can't you see what I'm doing is important? Why don't you get that? And this is relationships. And now all of a sudden, these people you love in your life have become a hindrance. They become an annoyance. They become an obstacle for you. because you've got to hold it all together. When you have no margin, there's no room for mistakes. There's no room for the interruptions. And can I just tell you, the greatest things in life are so often found in the margin. The best moments of your life are often in those unplanned, unscripted moments when you're putting the kids to bed and they're like, Dad, can you just do one more story? And because you have margin, you're like, all right, I was just going to go look at my phone anyway. And then you sit there and you read, and then it turns into giggles and tickles and laughs, and like these great, rich memories. That happens in the margin. The margin is where your friend calls you up and like, I'm going through this stuff in my life, and I just need someone. And you have the space to look at your calendar and shift some things around, like, let's go grab some coffee. That happens in the margin. The margin is where all these great things happen. It's where you can take, and the Lord begins to speak to you as you get into His Word, and you're like, there's something there. And the margin is where you can linger and like, Lord, what are you doing? What are you saying? What are you speaking? And things begin to happen. It all happens in the margin. So many good things, rich things are happening in the margin. And if you don't have margin in your life, there's no room for mistakes. There's no room for accidents, there's no room for interruptions, and there's no room for people, which means there's no room for wonder, there's no room for surprise, there's no room for discovery, there's no room for the holy moments. Look, we can all agree that margin's a good thing. Everyone in here is not going to sit here and I think margin's a dumb thing, Brian. That's pretty stupid. If margin is so great, though, why? And it's just a matter of like having a little gap, right? Just having a little room to grow. If that's what margin is, why don't we do this? Why wouldn't we have margin in our lives? Because here's what margin means. Margin means going with less. Margin means stopping short. Margin means saying, that's enough. Margin means walking away from good things. It means leaving good stuff behind. It means saying no to great experiences in exchange for ho-hum ones. It means saying no to great opportunities that are going to come once in a lifetime. Having margin means saying no to some things that will really, really help your roots grow and establish you. But you're root bound. Here's what we think, and I think this is the trick of it. We think we could get so much more accomplished with our lives with that gap. With that gap. Think of what I could do with that extra hour. Think of what I could do if we got that little bit more money. Think about what could happen, what I could do, how much further ahead, how much easier it'll be. Just think if we use that, things will be better. And I think underneath all of it is this thing called fear. I think there's insignificance, the fear of insignificance. I think we fear we'll miss out on things, that we won't be happy if we don't have that. I think we fear what will happen tomorrow. But we end up consuming the very thing we're trying to preserve. And I think Jesus talks about some of this in Matthew chapter 6. And so I want to turn there and look at his words. This is the famous Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gives, and this is right in the middle of the sermon. And Jesus opens up chapter 6, and he starts talking about finances. He's talking about possessions, the treasures that we have in this life. And he says, don't store up earthly treasures. Don't store up for yourself treasures here on earth, but store up treasures in heaven, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And he goes on and he starts talking about nobody can serve two masters. You can't serve both God and money. You'll either be devoted to one and despise the other. You can't serve both of them. And so he's preaching this. He's sharing this with the people, and they're listening to these words, and they're like, hey, you can tell they're getting worried. This is stirring up some worry within them. And there's this like, and the people are like, you're telling me to make God my treasure, to make God my pursuit. You're telling me that I'll find my security, my value, my worth in Him. But wait a minute. How's that work? How's that going to pay my bills? How's that going to help me survive? How's that going to prepare the way for tomorrow? There's things to be done. There's things to do. How is it going to handle all that? And so Jesus, in chapter 6, verse 25, he shares this. He says, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? He's like, don't worry about your life. Now let me add some context here. In Jesus, Jesus is talking about what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're wearing. These are the very basic fundamentals of life, the basic needs of the human. We need to eat, we need to drink, we need the security, we need protection. So he's talking about the very fundamental basic needs of humanity. And keep in mind the context of this culture. Today when we talk about I have nothing to wear, we'll say that statement, I have nothing to wear. We're looking at 30 different outfits in our closet. I have nothing to wear. That's what we mean when we say that. When we say, man, I have nothing to eat, we're just saying we don't know which restaurant. There's nothing in our fridge, but we have stuff. Or we don't know what to eat, and there's 100 different restaurants we're choosing and deciding. That's what we're talking about when we talk about, well, we don't have anything to eat, or we don't know what to eat. But that's not what they mean in their day. When they're talking about, I don't know what to eat, they're talking about, I don't have food to eat. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. There's a famine in the land. The crops didn't grow. The animals are dying. I don't know what to eat. When they talk about drink, it's like there's a dirty pool right there that the animals swim in and defecate in, and I don't know what to drink. Where's this clean water coming from? This is a totally different understanding of so when Jesus is looking at these people and he's talking about their very basic needs and saying, don't worry about them. It's like you're getting ready to jump in the water and saying, don't worry about breathing. Don't worry about it. That's what he's like. This is a very basic necessity, and Jesus is addressing this with them. And he says this, verse 26. He says, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap, store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father, he feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Jesus says, look at those birds. There's that mama bird flying all around. That mama, she's not taking just care of one bird, two babies. There's several little babies in that nest. Look at her. She's flying around getting worms. She's not sowing. She's not reaping. She's not storing up the food in barns. She's not getting a collection of worms off to the side. She's not doing any of that. God's taking care of that bird. How much more is God going to take care of you? God's going to take how much, this last line, can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? In all the toil, in all the worry, here's the thing. I think we can create margin in our lives. If I can use up that little bit of space, that little bit of margin, it'll make tomorrow better. It'll give me more peace tomorrow. It'll be an investment that if I can use it, we think we can create margin in our lives. And Jesus is like, you can't even add an hour to your life. You have no control of this, of all of this, of time, of what's going to happen. You have no control. You can't know all your work, all your efforts, and you can't add a single minute. You can't create this. You can't do this. Why are you worrying? Why are you toiling out of fear? He continues in verse 28, and he says, and why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? It's like, see these flowers? Beautiful. This lily right here. Look at this lily. See this lily? If you just really look at it, look how beautiful it is. I mean, just a brilliant display of beauty. Even more beautifully adorned than Solomon, just this man of great wealth. Look how beautiful this flower is. God did this. And you know what tomorrow holds for this flower? Death. It's going to shrivel. It's going to be cut up and thrown into the burn pile. That's what tomorrow is. How much more you? Like, this is a perishing thing. It's on the way out, and look how God treats it and displays it. It's just full of beauty. How much more you, who's destined for more? Jesus goes on, he says, it's like, so don't worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Quit saying, but if I don't do this, then this won't happen. And if this doesn't happen, then I won't be able to do this. Quit going around, quit worrying about all these things. Don't live this way, because this is the way the pagans. A pagan means someone who does not believe in God, someone whose trust is not in the living God. Don't live like them. When you worry like this, you're living and you're behaving, you're professing a faith like someone who doesn't even believe in God. That's how you're navigating your life. Your actions are confessing that you don't trust in Him. And He says this, your Father knows that you need these. God knows this. This hasn't escaped His attention. It's not just like, oh yeah, I got to feed the kids tonight. He's like, He knows you need to eat. He knows your basic needs. He knows what you need. Your Father knows these things. And Jesus points to something even deeper, even more fundamental to the need of your life. He says these great words of Jesus. But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. And then all these things, all these concerns, all these worries, all these needs that you have will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You see, Jesus is revealing this deeper condition of the human heart. It's more substantive than what you drink, what you eat, what you're going to wear, your security, your provision. It's deeper than that. You see, 2 chapters earlier, in Matthew chapter 4, Jesus' ministry is about to begin, and He's led out into the wilderness by the Spirit. And in the wilderness, He is tempted by the devil. And the temptation is this. The devil comes up to Him and He says, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. And Jesus answered him, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Jesus is saying that life isn't just happening because I'm eating and drinking and I'm protected from the elements. That's not what makes life happen. There's something deeper at work. There's something deeper that is making all of this happen, and it is the Word of God. This is the source of our provision. This is our security. This is our tomorrow, every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And until you see Him as the source and trust in Him as the source, you'll always be fighting for margin. You'll always be fighting for peace. You'll always be striving for rest until you see Him as the source of it all. You see, Jesus is saying, your anxiousness is revealing something. You see, when we get anxious, when we get worried, when we begin to worry, it reveals something. It reveals that we're under this illusion. So like, when a doctor comes into the office, you're in the waiting room, and he gives you the bad news. Here's the diagnosis. Here's what's going to happen with them. Here's what's going to happen with you. When your boss walks into your office and says, got bad news. What happens is you get worried, right? Like, oh, what? I'll tell you, what really is happening is the illusion is breaking down. The illusion is this, that you're in control. That's the illusion. And what you're actually being woken up to is the reality that you have no control, that you're not the one making life happen. You're not the one that's calling the shots. That's the reality. And worry and anxiousness is that reality getting shattered. You aren't in control. God has always been the one in control. And we don't like that. We don't like the thought of that. There's something uncomfortable about that we don't have control. But that is the reality. And it's disturbing. And we're afraid of that. And when Jesus says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, he's saying, quit living under this illusion of how all of life happens, that I make it happen, that I must do this, that I'm the one that can create peace, that I'm the one that can manufacture rest. I must do this and this and this. That's how I'll find satisfaction. That's how I'll find contentment. That's how I'll find the happiness. That's how I'll do it because I'll do it. I'll make it happen. That you're in control. And this has never, ever been the case. God created you out of nothing. God sustains you when there is nothing. God saves you though you offer nothing. This is good news. When he created you, he looked at you and said, this is very good. It is out of his loving goodness that he sustains you. It is his own goodness through Christ, his Son. The goodness and the sinless, righteous life of Jesus is the one that saves us. He's always been the one behind the work. God has always been the one who sustained our life. He's been the one that spoke us into life, and it's his word that has saved our life. If the team wants to come. When Jesus said these words, the very, very comforting words of, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. What Jesus is inviting you into is into margin, into his rest, into his peace. He's inviting you into trusting him. He's saying, I will do the work in this gap. Where you are and what you need, I'll handle this. I'll handle this space. Look, you can go take a rest. You can take a break. I'll run the world. I'll keep it all going. You can rest. I'll do that. You can go without all these things over here. You got it. You'll be satisfied. I'll satisfy you. You can rely on me. You'll have life and life to the fullest. You can do it if you would just trust in me. If you would just say, that's enough. If you would just say, all right, I'll let you take over. But you gotta trust him. You gotta trust him when he says, give me the margins. Friends, you don't want to wait until things are falling apart to make time. There's a number of us in this room that it took everything falling apart. You'll see that's when marriages will all of a sudden make time. Is when the divorce papers come in, and now all of a sudden they've got time to create the margin to kind of, don't wait to that point. Don't wait until the relationship's falling apart to now make time. Don't wait until the sickness cripples you and now you're forced to be in your bed, and now don't have the time be forced upon you. Don't have that moment forced upon you. It'll happen. Either way, a Sabbath will happen in your life. You'll either choose it or it'll be forced upon you. Margin will happen in your life. You either choose it or it'll be forced upon you because you are not in control, but you have to trust in him. You have to be willing to say, that's enough. You got it. And so as we enter into this series, where in your life is there no margin that you feel like I got to keep all the grips on it? If I don't, then it won't. That's failed thinking. Look where it's getting you. Something has to be reoriented. So there has to be some confession within your heart that I don't have this, that I'm not in control. That seems like a losing strategy, but with the Lord, if His hand is involved, it's the only winning strategy. So Lord, you got this. Can you pray that again? Can you enter into that degree of like, Lord, I will trust in you. Can you look in this area of your life and say, Lord, I will trust in you. Lord, help me to trust in you. I'm scared, I'm fearful, but Lord, I believe in your words. So I invite you to deepen your trust in Him as we enter into this series. And He's a good God. You can trust Him. He's been faithful.
Thank you for joining us today at MiddleTree Church. If we're not yet connected, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching MiddleTree Church, or by clicking the link in the description below. You can also fill out a connection card by texting WELCOME to 314-710-2028. If you're here in St. Louis, or maybe you're passing through someday, we would love to meet you in person. We meet Sundays at 10:30 at 2105 McCausland Avenue. Thank you for listening. Now go and be the church.